Your presentation is amateur, Fiona announced, her voice cutting through the conference room. The growth projections are unrealistic, and these customer profiles are vague at best. She pressed delete on my laptop, erasing my presentation file as 18 colleagues watched. Start from scratch. We'll reschedule for next week. I stood paralyzed at the front of the room, watching a year of meticulous work vanish from the projector screen. My throat constricted as I felt every gaze boring into me. Today marked my 4th work anniversary, the day I was supposed to finally receive recognition for transforming our client acquisition rate from dismal to industry-leading. I have backup files, I managed to say. Files aren't the issue, Mira, Fiona replied, brushing invisible lint from her blazer. It's your analytical framework that's fundamentally flawed. The executive team deserves more sophisticated insights. The projector's harsh light illuminated her satisfied expression, one I recognized all too well. However, she had reviewed this exact presentation yesterday and called it exceptional work. This wasn't about quality. This was about ensuring I remained invisible. If you're wondering how I went from this soul-crushing moment to completely transforming my career, stay with me. Before I continue, I want to thank each of you for listening to my story. Your support through likes and comments has given me the courage to finally share what happened after that humiliating day. If you're new here, please subscribe to hear more authentic stories about overcoming workplace toxicity and reclaiming your power. My name is Dara Wells. 4 years ago, I joined Fiona's team as a market research specialist with a background in behavioral economics. I was 28, fresh from completing my doctorate, and convinced that understanding human decision-making was the key to revolutionary marketing strategies. Everyone told me I was fortunate to work under Fiona Grant, the woman supposedly responsible for pioneering emotional analysis in the consumer products sector. What no one mentioned was Fiona's talent for appropriating other people's innovations. I discovered this during my 2nd year, when I developed a proprietary approach to consumer engagement. I named it Emotional Response Mapping in my private notes, a system that identified psychological triggers in purchasing decisions across different demographics. When I showed Fiona my preliminary findings, she appeared genuinely impressed. "This has remarkable potential," she said, borrowing my research journal. "Let me review the complete methodology." 3 weeks later, she presented her breakthrough innovation in customer profiling at the quarterly leadership meeting. She called it intuitive consumer alignment. It was my work, stripped of its psychological foundation and repackaged with marketing buzzwords. When I confronted her privately afterward, she leaned against her desk and said, "A good team player understands the hierarchy of recognition. Dara, your contribution will be acknowledged when appropriate." That appropriate time never materialized. Instead, my existence at the company became increasingly restricted. Fiona scheduled critical presentations during meetings I was supposed to attend. She modified my analysis and reports without explanation. She assigned impossible deadlines, then highlighted the inevitable minor errors in team emails. I considered quitting countless times, but the economy was struggling, and I'd just taken on significant student loan refinancing. Plus, our company was the industry leader in consumer behavior research, precisely where my work could make the greatest impact. So I adapted. I documented everything meticulously. I created private backups. I maintained relationships with clients who valued my insights, and I continued refining my methodology in secret. The breakthrough came when we secured the Wilson account, a $30 million product line that had rejected 4 competitor agencies. The client specifically mentioned being impressed by our unique psychological approach to consumer motivation. "Your strategy worked brilliantly," our CEO told Fiona during the celebration. I wasn't invited, but my colleague Julian texted me the CEO's exact words. "This innovative method separates us from every firm in the region." Fiona accepted the praise with calculated modesty. Meanwhile, I received a generic thank you card with 20 other team members. That night, I made a decision. I would continue developing my methodology independently. I created a comprehensive document at home, expanding the framework, adding case studies with anonymized data, and providing statistical validation. 3 months before my work anniversary, I submitted my complete methodology to the Industry Innovation Board's blind review system. The submission included no identifying information, just the framework, its application, and verified results. I never expected it would transform everything. The day of my anniversary presentation arrived with unexpected pressure. Fiona had announced it would showcase our team's revolutionary approach to consumer engagement. The executive team would attend, including the CEO. I spent weeks preparing, crafting the presentation to highlight both the methodology's success and my specific contributions without directly challenging Fiona's claimed ownership. My strategy was subtle: demonstrate expertise that only the creator would possess while maintaining professional courtesy. That morning, Fiona insisted on reviewing my presentation one final time. "This looks comprehensive," she said, scrolling through the slides. "Very thorough. I included the psychological foundations I mentioned. The executives should understand why this works so effectively." She paused on a slide, showing parallel columns of my original research notes and current implementation. "Is this necessary? It complicates the narrative. It demonstrates how the approach evolved," I explained. "Shows the intellectual rigor behind it." "Fine," she said, returning my laptop. "Just remember to emphasize our collaborative development process." 2 hours later, I stood before the department and executive team, ready to finally receive recognition for my work. I connected my laptop to the projector, opened my file, and found it completely overwritten. The meticulously crafted presentation was replaced with a generic template containing bullet points of vague marketing concepts. Before I could recover, Fiona stepped forward with those devastating words: "Your presentation is amateur. Start from scratch." I excused myself, heart pounding as I walked toward the bathroom. In the hallway, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" My voice sounded distant, even to my own ears. "Am I speaking with the creator of the emotional response mapping system?" asked a woman with a distinctive voice. I stopped walking. That was the exact name I'd given my technique in my private notes. Never at work, where Fiona insisted on calling it intuitive consumer alignment. "Yes," I answered cautiously. "This is Dara Wells. I'm Natalie Kim, calling from the Industry Innovation Board. Your submission to our blind review impressed us tremendously. We'd like to discuss you potentially leading our next research initiative." I steadied myself against the wall. "I'm sorry. How did you trace the submission back to me?" "It was supposed to be anonymous." "It was," she confirmed, "but your methodology was so distinctive that when we shared it with our advisory committee, 3 separate members identified similar work being done at your firm. The mathematical patterns in your approach are quite unique. When we inquired further, your name emerged as the probable source." I remained silent, processing the implications. "Miss Wells, we've had inquiries from several firms interested in implementing your approach. One is prepared to make an immediate offer for you to lead their strategy department." When she named the figure, $450,000 annually plus performance bonuses, I thought I'd misheard. "Would you be available for dinner tonight? The CEO would like to meet with you personally." I agreed, still dazed, and returned to my desk. I noticed Fiona watching me from her office. I said nothing about the call and began rebuilding the presentation from my backup files at home. That evening, I met with Elena Torres, CEO of Summit Analytics, our industry's most respected research firm. "We recognized the brilliance in your approach immediately," she explained over dinner. "Then, we noticed something odd. Your current company was using a similar method, but missing key elements that make it truly effective. It raised questions about whether they fully understood the methodology they were implementing." "They don't," I admitted, finally speaking the truth aloud. "Because I created it, and I never shared the complete framework." Elena's expression shifted with recognition. "The rumors were true, then." "What rumors?" "That Fiona Grant's supposed innovations are rarely her own," she said. "There have been whispers for years, but no one could prove anything." I took a slow sip of water, processing Elena's words. "Has this happened with others?" "There are at least 3 former employees who've made similar claims," she replied. "But none had your level of documentation or such a distinctive methodology. The others were easier to dismiss as disgruntled employees." Elena slid a folder across the table. "This is our formal offer. Take a few days to consider it. We want you to lead our new Behavioral Insights division." That night, I barely slept. By morning, I'd made my decision. I called Elena and accepted the position, but requested something unusual: I wanted to give my current company 2 weeks' notice before the Industry Innovation Board announced me as the methodology's creator. May I ask why? Elena sounded curious. I need to set something right first, I explained. For the next week, I rebuilt my anniversary presentation from scratch, incorporating elements only the true creator would understand. When colleagues questioned my surprising calm after such public humiliation, I simply said I was determined to improve. Fiona watched me with suspicion, but said nothing. I scheduled the makeup presentation for the following Thursday. I requested the same audience, including the executive team. Fiona attempted to reschedule, claiming scheduling conflicts, but our CEO insisted it proceed as planned. You seem remarkably composed, Julian commented during lunch. If my boss had trashed my work that way, I'd be updating my resume. I smiled. Sometimes patience pays off. The morning of my presentation, I arrived early to test the equipment. I connected my laptop directly to the projector system and disabled the network connection to prevent any remote interference. When Fiona asked to preview my slides, I politely declined. I'd prefer to present the complete vision at once, I said. It will make more sense in context. She narrowed her eyes. Remember who evaluates your performance, Dara. I remember everything, I replied. The conference room filled with department heads, analysts, and executive leadership. Fiona positioned herself in the front row, notepad ready. Our CEO, Benjamin, nodded encouragingly from his seat. I began speaking, not with standard market projections, but with a fundamental question. Why do consumers make emotional decisions while believing they're being rational? For the next 40 minutes, I took them through the complete emotional response mapping methodology. Not Fiona's simplified version, but my original framework with its psychological foundations, mathematical models, and neurological research. I revealed insights that even Fiona had never seen. I displayed implementation timelines showing when each component had been activated in our campaigns, all dated before Fiona had supposedly developed them. I demonstrated application techniques that exactly matched notes from my research journal, complete with my handwriting visible in the scanned images. Throughout my presentation, I referred to the methodology by its original name, emotional response mapping, never once using Fiona's rebranded term. As I approached my conclusion, Benjamin leaned forward. This is fascinating, Dara, but I'm confused. This contradicts what we've been told about our strategy development. Who actually created this approach? Before Fiona could interject, I clicked to a new slide, showing the methodology's evolution, including elements that only its creator would know. I highlighted subtle patterns I'd embedded in every campaign for 4 years. What you're seeing is the complete emotional response mapping system, I explained. I developed it after noticing consistent patterns in how consumers form emotional connections with brands. Fiona stood abruptly. This is absurd. We've been using intuitive consumer alignment, which I developed too. Interesting, I replied calmly. Then you can explain the mathematical principle behind the third stage emotional trigger point? It's fundamental to why the Wilson campaign succeeded. The room went quiet. Fiona glanced around at expectant faces, then back at me. She couldn't answer because I'd never shared that part with her. Benjamin turned toward her. Fiona, did you create this methodology or not? Her hesitation was answer enough. I continued as if nothing had happened. The most exciting aspect of this framework is its adaptability across industries. It's not just effective for consumer products, but for any decision-making process involving emotional factors. After I finished, Benjamin asked several insightful questions, completely ignoring Fiona's attempts to interject. Other executives requested access to the complete methodology documentation. As the room cleared, Fiona gripped my arm. My office. Now. In her office, she closed the door forcefully. What exactly do you think you're doing? You've undermined my authority in front of the entire leadership team. I simply presented my work, I replied. The work you deleted last week. Your work? She laughed bitterly. You were hired to assist my department. Any intellectual property you develop belongs to me as department head. That's not actually how intellectual property works in our industry, I said, especially when the methodology was substantially developed before I joined the company. No one will believe that, she scoffed. I've been recognized for innovative consumer analysis for years. Have you? I took out my phone and showed her an email I'd received that morning. Her expression shifted as she read the Industry Innovation Board's formal recognition of me as the official creator of what they described as the most significant advancement in consumer psychology research of the decade. "You can't," she began. "I already have," I said. "The announcement goes public tomorrow morning. Every firm in our industry will know this method came from me, not you. This is career suicide," she hissed. "I'll make sure you never work in this field again." I smiled. "Actually, I've accepted a position with Summit Analytics. I start in 2 weeks." Her face paled. "Summit? That's impossible." Elena Torres was particularly interested in implementing the complete methodology, not the simplified version you've been using. Something flickered in Fiona's eyes, the first genuine fear I'd ever seen from her. "What do you want? Money? A promotion?" "Nothing from you," I replied. "But I am curious. How many other employees have you claimed as your own?" Her silence was confirmation enough. "That's what I thought," I said. "By this time tomorrow, your reputation won't be what it was." I walked out of her office, leaving her staring after me. The next morning, I arrived to find unusual activity. Benjamin's assistant requested my presence in the executive conference room. When I entered, the company's legal counsel, HR director, and Benjamin were waiting. "Dara," Benjamin began, "we've just received an interesting communication from the Industry Innovation Board. They've named you as the creator of what we've been calling intuitive consumer alignment. Why didn't you tell us about this conflict?" "I attempted to, on multiple occasions," I replied calmly. "I have documented emails requesting meetings with leadership that were consistently rerouted to Fiona." The legal counsel leaned forward. "We need to understand the extent of this situation. Our company has been publicly claiming ownership of this methodology. For the next 2 hours, I presented my evidence, emails, dated research journals, implementation timelines, client feedback, specifically mentioning elements Fiona couldn't have known about. By afternoon, the company had launched an internal investigation into intellectual attribution practices. Fiona was placed on administrative leave while they reviewed all her claimed innovations. 3 other employees came forward with similar experiences. When I returned to my desk, a company-wide email announced an immediate promotion for me to a newly created position as Director of Research Methodology. The salary matched what Summit had offered. I called Elena to explain the situation. "They're trying to keep me," I said. "They've offered to match your compensation package and create a new director-level position." "Not surprising," she replied. "Will you accept it?" I thought about the years of dismissal and credit stealing. "No, I've made a commitment to Summit, and I intend to honor it." "I respect that," Elena said. "And don't worry, the Industry Innovation Board's announcement proceeds tomorrow as planned." The next day, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from industry colleagues. The announcement had sent shockwaves through the research community. Prominent firms released statements distancing themselves from Fiona's past work, requesting verification of methodologies she'd presented at conferences. Benjamin called me into his office. "We've spoken with Summit. We're prepared to offer you a substantial retention package, executive status, doubled salary, and public recognition as the true innovator behind our success." "I appreciate that, Benjamin," I said. "But this was never about money or titles. It was about attribution and respect." "What can we do to keep you?" "Nothing," I replied. "But you could institute company-wide protocols ensuring other innovative employees receive proper credit for their work." On my final day, Benjamin announced a new company policy. Every creative contribution would now be properly attributed, with compensation tied directly to innovation. Without mentioning Fiona by name, he acknowledged past attribution failures and promised transparency moving forward. My last task was cleaning out my desk. Julian helped carry my books to the elevator. "You realize you've just changed everything around here," he said. 3 department heads are reviewing past projects to identify unrecognized contributions." "Good," I replied. "That's exactly what should happen." "What about Fiona?" he asked. I shrugged. "That's not my concern anymore." At Summit Analytics, I built a team committed to ethical research practices. Every team member received credit for their contributions, with bonuses tied to innovation. Our work attracted clients seeking authentic consumer insights based on credible research. 6 months after leaving, I received an unexpected call from Benjamin. "We'd like to hire Summit, specifically you, to provide training to our strategy team. We're willing to pay premium rates. Who would attend these sessions? I asked. The entire research department, he replied, including Fiona. Fiona? She's still there? She's been demoted to junior analyst. The investigation uncovered a pattern of appropriating others' work. As part of her probation, she's required to complete ethics training and acknowledge original sources. Your training would be part of her rehabilitation program. I considered declining, then reconsidered. I'd be happy to conduct the training. I'll have my team prepare a comprehensive proposal. 3 weeks later, I stood in the lobby of my former workplace, visitor badge clipped to my blazer. The receptionist did a double take when she saw me. Dr. Wells, everyone's talking about your return, she said, lowering her voice. The training room is completely full. Benjamin met me at the elevator. Thank you for agreeing to this. Your methodology has transformed how we approach client research, but without your insight, we're missing crucial elements. As we walked toward the training room, I asked, how has the department changed since I left? Dramatically, he replied. We implemented that attribution policy the day after you departed. Every project now includes detailed recognition of individual contributions. We've discovered talent that was previously invisible. When the training room door opened, I saw 40 faces turn toward me. In the back row sat Fiona, arms crossed defensively. She looked smaller somehow, her previously immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. The confidence that once radiated from her had dimmed. Good morning, I began. I'm Dr. Dara Wells, creator of Emotional Response Mapping. Today's session will cover both the theoretical foundation and practical application of this methodology. For the next 3 hours, I explained my research with the passion it deserved. I watched realization dawn on faces throughout the room as people understood why certain campaigns had succeeded while others failed. I answered questions that had likely gone unaddressed for years. Fiona remained silent, taking notes with mechanical precision. Her eyes never met mine directly. During the midday break, Julian approached me in the hallway. This is surreal, he said. Everyone knows what happened now. The office hasn't been the same since you left. Better or worse, I asked. Different. More collaborative, he replied, but also more cautious. People document everything. Nobody trusts Fiona, and she knows it. When we reconvened for the afternoon session, I shifted to practical applications. Let's analyze a case study. The Wilson campaign that increased customer engagement by 347% last year. From the corner of my eye, I saw Fiona tense. This had been her most celebrated achievement before my departure. What made this campaign exceptional wasn't just the methodology, but how it was implemented. I continued. The team responsible deserves recognition. I displayed a slide showing the original project team, including 3 junior analysts whose names had never appeared in the final presentation. Each person made specific contributions that were essential to the outcome. I methodically detailed each team member's work, citing their exact innovations, with dates from the project files Summit had acquired during our partnership agreement. I never mentioned Fiona directly, but her absence from the creative contributions was conspicuous. During the group exercise portion, I circulated among the tables. When I reached Fiona's group, she was sitting silently while her colleagues discussed the worksheet. Any insights to share? I asked her group. A young analyst responded enthusiastically while Fiona stared at her notebook. When the group finished, I addressed Fiona directly. Do you have anything to add? She looked up, her expression unreadable. The methodology is more comprehensive than I understood, she said flatly. Understanding is the first step toward improvement, I replied. As the day concluded, Benjamin asked me to say a few words about my new position at Summit. I described our collaborative environment, where recognition flowed to the true innovators. We found that proper attribution doesn't just benefit individuals. It creates stronger methodologies, I explained. When people can openly build upon each other's ideas, without fear of having their work claimed by others, innovation accelerates exponentially. People applauded enthusiastically as the session ended. Several approached with business cards, quietly inquiring about opportunities at Summit. I noticed Fiona slipping out the side door, leaving her materials scattered on the table. Benjamin walked me to the lobby. That was exceptional, Dara. Would you consider conducting quarterly training sessions with us? I'd be happy to discuss a continuing education partnership, I agreed. As we shook hands, He hesitated. There's something else you should know. 3 major clients asked specifically to work with you after the Innovation Board announcement. We had to disclose that you'd left the company. What happened? 2 transferred their accounts to Summit immediately. The third gave us 6 months to demonstrate we could implement your methodology correctly. I nodded, unsurprised. And how is that going? We're struggling, he admitted, which is why these training sessions are vital for us. As I waited for my car, Fiona emerged from the elevator. She paused when she saw me, then approached with visible reluctance. Congratulations on your success, she said, the words sounding rehearsed. Thank you. She glanced around to ensure we were alone. Was it worth it? Burning bridges that way? I considered her question carefully. I didn't burn the bridge, Fiona. I built a new one where everyone crossing it gets acknowledged for their contribution. You humiliated me, she said, her voice barely audible. I simply claimed credit for my work, I replied. The humiliation came from your choices, not mine. She looked away. Some people aren't meant to be innovators. We're implementers, making others' ideas function in the real world. There's nothing wrong with implementation, I agreed. The problem comes from claiming implementation as innovation. My entire career was built on that distinction, she said with unexpected honesty. Then perhaps it's time to build a different career. My car arrived, ending our conversation. As I prepared to leave, Fiona said something that stopped me. I looked up your dissertation yesterday. The seeds of emotional response mapping were there 7 years ago. I should have recognized the connection. It was the closest to an apology I would ever receive from her. Recognition matters, I replied, then got into my car. Over the next year, Summit's implementation of my methodology attracted international attention. We expanded into European and Asian markets, where our attribution-focused culture resonated with emerging research firms. I spoke at industry conferences about both the methodology and the importance of proper recognition. My unexpected vindication triggered similar cases across the industry. 3 major research firms established anonymous reporting systems for employees to identify instances of idea appropriation without fear of retaliation. The Industry Innovation Board created a verification process for methodological claims, requiring documented evidence of development. They named this the Wells Protocol, after my case established the standard. 18 months after my departure, I received an invitation to speak at the Global Research Summit, the industry's most prestigious gathering. My presentation would close the conference, a spot typically reserved for established industry leaders. When I arrived at the summit, I discovered Fiona was also attending, not as a speaker but as an ordinary participant. During networking events, I noticed how others interacted with her, polite but distant, the professional equivalent of quarantine. On the final day, I delivered my presentation to a packed auditorium. I discussed not just my methodology, but its evolution, how proper attribution had allowed it to grow beyond what any single person could develop independently. Innovation thrives in environments where people receive recognition for their contributions, I explained. When we create cultures of acknowledgement rather than appropriation, everyone benefits, including organizations. During the Q&A session, a hand raised from the middle section. It was Fiona. The moderator, unaware of our history, called on her. Yes, question from the center section. Fiona stood. Your methodology has obviously proven successful across various applications. What advice would you give someone looking to ethically build upon your work, rather than simply implementing it as is? The room went quiet. Everyone familiar with our story waited for my response. That's an excellent question, I replied. I believe the most ethical approach is transparent collaboration. Contact the original creator, propose your enhancement, and suggest a partnership that recognizes both contributions. Most innovators welcome evolution of their ideas when the process respects intellectual lineage. Fiona nodded and sat down. Afterward, several people commented on the exchange, impressed by my professionalism. What they didn't know was that her question had been the first genuine one she'd ever asked me. That evening at the conference gala, Benjamin approached my table. He had recently been named CEO after his predecessor's retirement. Summit is doing remarkable work with your methodology, he said. We've implemented the training principles you taught us, but we're still playing catch-up. How is Fiona adapting? I asked, out of curiosity. She resigned 3 months ago, he replied. started her own consulting firm, focusing on ethical implementation of existing methodologies. Her client contracts include mandatory attribution clauses. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 years after my public recognition as the methodology's creator, I published a comprehensive book detailing the complete framework. In the acknowledgments section, I thanked my former colleagues by name, including the junior analysts, whose contributions had enhanced my original concept. I also included a carefully worded paragraph about learning the importance of intellectual integrity from negative examples. I didn't name Fiona, but those familiar with the story would understand the reference. The book became required reading in business ethics courses at leading universities. I received invitations to speak about preventing intellectual appropriation in corporate environments. My story became a case study in reputation management seminars. Fiona's consulting practice grew modestly. She developed a specialty in helping organizations identify uncredited innovators within their ranks and establish proper attribution systems. In an industry publication, she was quoted saying, "My greatest professional lesson was understanding that implementation without acknowledgement is not leadership, it's appropriation." My revenge wasn't destroying Fiona's career or publicly humiliating her. It was creating a permanent change in how our entire industry viewed creative ownership. Every time a researcher received proper credit for their innovation, every time a company implemented an attribution protocol, every time a manager thought twice before claiming a subordinate's idea, that was my revenge, repeating itself endlessly. Fiona would spend the rest of her career in an industry transformed by her own misconduct, where the standards she violated had become fundamental principles named after the person whose work she stole. The most satisfying moment came 3 years after I left my former company. I received an email from a young researcher who had recently joined Fiona's firm. She wrote, "Your methodology changed how I approach consumer research, but your story changed how I protect my work. My contract includes specific attribution requirements because of what happened to you. Thank you for making this industry safer for innovators like me." That email meant more than any industry award or compensation package. I had created protection for people who would never know they needed it. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. Your support helps spread awareness about workplace intellectual theft and empowers others to protect their innovations. If you've experienced similar situations, please share in the comments. Your story might help someone else recognize and address what's happening to them. Remember that proper attribution isn't just about receiving credit. It's about maintaining the integrity of innovation itself. Like and subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your professional power and transforming negative experiences into positive change.